Well, good morning, you guys. How are you all doing today? Good. I love it. How is everyone else doing today? How are you guys doing? It is beautiful outside. I mean, it feels like summer has already arrived, or at least maybe not the 100, the triple, digit summer that's coming our way. But I love the weather that we're getting to have outside. Even just yesterday, Aaron and I got to just enjoy a Saturday outside. It was beautiful. It was awesome. But I love that we're in this series right now called Unlearning Religion. And today is actually our third week. And if this is your first time in on this conversation, really welcome. It has been an exciting journey as we've really been talking about some of the things that maybe we've been taught that are wrong about what it means to be a Christian. I mean, there are some ideas and some ideas and views and perceptions of what we believe it means to follow God, and maybe we learned it from a kid growing up in church, or even we've learned it from other people, or just our interaction with people who are apparently Christians, or even movies or music or other influences that are all around us. You see, I think there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of clutter that's been kind of being built up in our heads. And I really want us to kind of sort through it, kind of in this springtime when we kind of do garage sales and we spring clean our home, right? Maybe it's time for us to take that treadmill we bought 2 years ago for our New Year's resolution 2 years ago that we haven't used since. Maybe it's time for us to get rid of it. Or maybe that pair of shoes that we've only worn one time, maybe it's time to kind of pass it on to somebody else, right? There's some clutter that's kind of building up inside of our heads that we really need to sort through. And it's been an amazing conversation because we've really been getting to the core of what it is that God is inviting us to. Because really by accident, we don't even know that we've done this. We've accidentally have taken what God intended to be a relationship with us, and we've spun it into a religion about him. And we're missing so many things of what he is dreaming for us to embrace and to live in, which is why so often our faith feels stale and dry and dull. So we're going to sort through some of these things, and we kicked off this series 2 weeks ago where we talked about how, maybe sometimes when we talk about following God, and we talk about what it means to follow Christ, we start to picture this image in our minds. If we were to begin to kind of define it, maybe we'd start saying that it's a bunch of rules, restrictions, right? We talk about how we have to give up our freedom, or how we have to stop having fun, or how we have to start dragging our feet to church, and we have to start abiding by all these rules and obligations, and how we have to go be a part of this church. It's all about getting our money, right? And so we talked about how when we look at what it means to follow God, we picture a lot of those things. And I get it. A lot of us have been through a lot of junk in life. So maybe that's kind of what's cultivated that perception. But really, what if what we believe to be true is actually wrong? Remember, we talked about how as a kid growing up at my grandparents' house, and maybe this is true for you, right? Every time I went over to my grandparents' house, they had this bowl of fruit sitting on a coffee table in their living room. And from a distance, I'd walk into the living room, and I'd be starving. And oh, my word, that pear, that apple sitting there in that bowl looks so good. But then I'd go and I'd pick it up, and I'm like, this is styrofoam. What is this? I don't know why they'd put fruit in a living room. What is that? It belongs in the kitchen. But maybe, what if what we believe to be true about following God, we only see because we're actually standing at a distance? What if what we think is true is actually wrong? We're missing out on one of the most fulfilling things we could ever embrace in life if we chose to take a risk and get closer to God. It was an amazing conversation we had 2 weeks ago as we wrestled with what if we allowed ourselves to kind of put down the walls that we put up between us and God. And it doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or not. There are walls that we put up, these divides that we put up around faith and about God being in our life. And what if we were to take those down and really have a close and meaningful relationship with God? Would we really feel the fulfillment that he promises? Would those insecurities within our heart actually begin to fade like we hear? Would we really experience that genuine sense of joy? Not like Christmas morning where we get excited when we open the presents, but real true happiness that fills all the cracks within our hearts. And that longing, the aching of our souls. What if we allowed ourselves to get closer to God? And and all those things that we hear, but we don't really believe from a distance. What if we were to allow ourselves to get closer and actually experience them? Wonderful 2 weeks ago. And then we started talking about last week how this reality that God has kind of put in front of us, this standard of living, right? He's put before us this cadence of which he wants us to walk about every single day. There's these people who call them rules, but God really speaks about them as guidelines in life. And so he gives these things to us, like the Ten Commandments and other things that are in the Old Testament. And it's kind of like the sport of pole vaulting, right? If you ever watch the Olympics, or maybe you know somebody who plays that sport, but they run towards this giant, frame that's up in the air with this huge pole, and they fling themselves, maybe 10, 12 feet, and it's incredible. I love watching that sport. Well, it's not that popular of one, but it's incredible to see how these athletes, just go soaring in the air over these bars, how they just barely touch that pole, that bar that's been elevated for them to jump over. And God has given us this way of living that's kind of like a bar. And people with enough self-discipline and focus, people were able to get over. There are things that people could do. But if they ever fell short, if they ever didn't make it, God, of course, offered a way for them to, kind of be renewed with him, these different sacrifices and things in the Old Testament. But what's happened in our culture today, where we can easily write a review about a restaurant, where we can rate a product we buy on Amazon, where we can look up Google reviews of different things, how we can, if we're buying a new phone and we want to learn all about our new laptop, we can research so much on so many different websites, how there are so many reviews and ratings about some things in our culture that loves to critique. We've carried in this mindset into the church of being judgmental people. And so what's happened, and maybe even you've experienced this for yourself, the church has done a great job at raising the bar, at adding on all these rules and expectations that God himself did not even give humanity. That was our conversation last week, how the church has done a great job at raising the bar. And then what's happened is that we then don't even try to, clear over it ourselves. We just stand next to it and we laugh and we judge and look down on people who can't live up to these expectations. And in our culture, the church has built this image of itself of being the backseat drivers of other people's lives, and none of us, not a single one of us, like backseat drivers. I didn't think so. None of us like backseat drivers. We're really good at being them, but we don't like them. And that's like where this kind of comes in, like, you're a backseat driver. We realized how in what it means to follow God, it is essential if we're going to be people who fulfill our purpose in life, to be the light of the world. We need to make sure that we're unlearning this critical spirit, we're unlearning this judgmental attitude, this self-righteousness of thinking we've got it all together and we're able to look down on other people who don't. Important is for us to learn that attitude and that spirit, and to learn how to love people well. Learn how to love people like Jesus did, selflessly, so we can really fulfill our true purpose and our true role of being people who introduce others to the one who lifts them over the bar, and to Christ, who truly renews their heart and their soul, who changes their life. Not God, who's on the other side of a one-way glass, kind of staring in like an interrogation room kind of scene, kind of judging us and critiquing us, but no, into a relationship where we can know him, the one who made us. He wants to call us his son, his daughter. And let us know that the hardships that we face in life, we don't have to go through on our own. We can go through them with the one who's bigger than anything. It's incredible what God invites us to. And really, we kind of had this dream kind of grow last week, where we said, hey, Easter is right around the corner, and we as a new church really want to make sure that our community knows that we're here to love them and not judge them. And so our Easter series on the 21st is going to be that you are loved, that as a church, we're here to let people know that you are loved, that we love you. We're not here to judge you or look down on you. We are here to let you know that you matter to us. We believe that you matter to God, you matter to us. We're here to encourage you, lift you up, and to love on you, just like Jesus did. Because there are, unfortunately, a lot of people who find every opportunity to judge and look down on those who don't have it right or have it all together. Yeah, I'll be honest, I think all of us in the room don't have it right or all together. As your pastor, I don't have it right or I don't have it all together. But we're here as a new church getting to love people. And what's pretty exciting is that we have this rather wild and ambitious goal of inviting 5,000 households to our Easter Sunday, which is crazy. 5,000. Say 5,000 with me. 5,000. You guys are awesome. 5,000. I love it. But we have this crazy goal of inviting 5,000 people. So when you took a seat today, you probably saw one of these beautiful little door hangers. And what we're going to be doing for 3 Saturdays, the next 3 Saturdays leading up to Easter, is we're going to be rallying together here at the middle school at 9 o'clock to divide up into teams and go and just claim our neighborhoods. And it's so much fun. Literally, if you haven't been canvassing, this is kind of the term for what we get to do, canvassing, going out and putting these door hangers on people's homes. It's so much fun. It really is a blast because it's easy, right? And maybe if you're kind of, you're struggling with your New Year's resolution of losing weight and you haven't really been keeping up to those 10,000 steps every day, this is a perfect way to catch right back up because what we get to do, rally here at the school, head out into neighborhoods, and we get to walk down sidewalks and just hang invites on people's homes. And actually what's pretty crazy is that many of you are a part of this church family because of these, whether Christmas or opening or whatever it could have been, but many of you are here because of these, and these are powerful. This is a nickel, but really it's incredible how we get to see our small little steps of walking up somebody's driveway makes a huge impact in their life. It's incredible. And so we're going to meet together on those 3 Saturdays, 9 o'clock. It's going to be a blast. What's fun is we just hang on people's door handles and we walk away. We don't knock on doors. We don't talk to people, right? So if you're like antisocial, right, this is perfect for you. You don't talk to anybody. It's okay. And if somebody comes out, just say, I'm inviting you to church. See ya, and run away. But that'd be a little weird. But try to. I bet you could do a whole lot better job at saying hi to people than that. But we're just gonna hang these on people's homes and walk away and let God use this small piece of paper to do something big in somebody's life. And if you're not able to be a part of those 3 Saturdays, I understand that life is hectic and crazy. We have a bunch of invites on this table right here next to the seat cushions that you can grab a stack or however many of these and take them home and maybe claim your neighborhood, claim your street. If you live in an apartment complex or in a subdivision, listen, maybe this week or over the next couple of weeks, you can take some of these and go on a stroll through what you've been talking about this whole time. Now you have a reason to do it, right? You've been talking about taking some walks around the neighborhood, right? Come on, honey, I want to go for a walk. Now I'm tired from work all day, right? What a perfect reason to get out of the house, right? Throw the kid in a stroller, grab the dog, put him on a leash, and just walk around the neighborhood and just hang these on homes and just watch what God does with these small, almost effortless impact that we get to have on people's lives. See what God does with something so small that we do. Amazing. So we're going to do 5,000. How many people we're going to do? Oh, I love you guys. You're amazing. But grab some of those. It's going to be incredible to see what God does with these. But for our time together today, I want us to talk again about this reality of this bar that God has given humanity. Kind of like that picture again of pole vaulting and trying to clear the bar. This reality that God has given a standard for humanity. And even as I mention that, there are probably some things that come to mind about what exactly is entailed, right? If we're to try to put together a list, like what exactly is all the details of what it is that God is wanting us to live by, there are a lot of things that we can put on this list, and I am excited for next week, because next week we get to have that conversation. And I promise you, next week is going to be one of the most encouraging and uplifting conversations that we've ever had. I can't wait for next Sunday when we talk about what exactly it is that God is wanting us to do. Right? Is it really wrong to have tattoos? Is it really wrong to drink? What are the habits we have in life? I am so excited for next week's conversation because it is going to be amazing. Listen, it sounds scary, but it's going to be one of the greatest conversations that we've ever had. I promise you'll leave feeling very encouraged and uplifted. But today there's a conversation that we have to take, that we have to have first before we can get to there. Because how the church has done a really great job at getting it wrong, at comparing people to the bar, at judging them next to it. And in a similar sense, how we've done a really bad job at understanding what the bar is, right? We have all these rules and restrictions in our minds, right? But how we've done a bad job of both those things, we've also done a really bad job. We've done a very bad job at how exactly it is that God wants us to interact with the bar. You see, it's not necessarily a habit that we've developed, but it really is an ideology and a value and a belief that we've ingrained in our minds that we don't even know is there. There's something that's kind of circling around in the shadows, that's lurking in the shadows of our belief system and our worldview, that's there, that's honestly robbing us of a real, pure, genuine relationship with God. There's something there that's hard for us to point out, and it's even more difficult to create, but I promise you this, once we get to tackle this and we get to kick it to the curb where it belongs, I promise you this, we get to experience an even more fulfilling and meaningful walk with God. Because there's something that's been holding us back. There's something that's been beating us down. Have you ever had days where you feel like, man, I stink as a Christian? You ever have days when you think, I'm not good enough to go to church? You see, there's this belief that we're allowing to kind of float around in the back of our heads. That is our good decisions that earn God's love. And then it's our bad ones that spoil it. You see, there's this belief that if we're good enough, we'll have God's favor. That if we follow all these rules, if we live that perfect life, then God will be proud of us. And God will like us. There's a belief of, man, I've messed up too many times. I've done too many things that are wrong for God to ever really love me, for God to ever use me. There's this lie that's been lurking kind of on the back burner of how we live every single day that tells us, that whispers to us that we're not good enough. It tells us that we'll never be good enough. That we've fallen beneath the bar too many times in life. That we've not met God's expectations and we've not met his standard. And so we'll never be there. We need just to settle in, camp out where we're at, and just realize that's just who we are. That's just how we're going to live. Friends, what a mistake that we've made is that we've lost a pure and genuine relationship with Christ because we've taken up this religion of trying to be good enough. You see, I was talking to a friend a couple months ago who, she shared with me that, as a kid, she grew up in church, and she was around my age, she was a little bit older. And she grew up in church, and her whole life, she grew up singing hymns, going to Sunday school, and Sunday night, and then, Wednesday night, all those things. She grew up that way her whole life. Maybe that's similar to your story. And now, she got into middle school and high school, and she kind of she pushed that all to the side. She didn't want to have God really in her life, and then she wound up now, here probably 10 or so years later, where she really regrets a lot of things. And I remember her explaining to me that right now she's in a place where she really wants to be right with God, but first she has to fix all of her bad decisions. All the things that she had done wrong, she has to kind of straighten back out and fix everything. Truth be told, many of us believe that it's up to us, that we first have to have correct behavior before we can be in a relationship with Christ. But the truth is that God invites us to worry more about having a correct heart than a correct behavior. This real reality where even after the honeymoon phase of our walk with Christ is kind of faded, we start to compare ourselves. We look down on ourselves. I'm still struggling with this. I want to stop, but I can't kick this habit. We beat ourselves up over and over again. I'm not going to be a good Christian because I keep cursing. I keep drinking. I keep doing all these things. I keep smoking. I'm not ever going to be a good enough Christian, right? I'm not ever going to be good enough to really go to church. Or I'm not ever going to really be good enough to be used by God. We look at ourselves in that light. We've taken what should be a detour in our walk with God of how God wants to change our character and how we live. It's a detour, and we brought it into the destination. It's a byproduct, but we've made it the center stage. We've made it the very thing that we have to chase after, that the goal of our faith is to be good people. When that's not right. And in life, we try to fulfill this this idea that, okay, I'm a Christian now, I have to go to church, I have to be good people, right? Oh, it's been a while since I've read my Bible, so we beat ourselves up about that. Or, man, I missed church, it's been a while, right? So we beat ourselves up about that. Oh, it's been a while since I've prayed or whatever. We put all these things into the mix, and, oh, I just can't stop sinning, keep on doing these things over and over, and I can't stop, and we keep beating ourselves up because we're not good enough. I mean, maybe I'm the only one who's been there. I don't think I am. I mean, have you ever found yourself in a situation where I've tried to kick this habit for so long, and I'm old enough, or I've been in my walk with God for so long, I feel like I should have kicked this habit by now, but just can't. So we even judge ourselves. But friends, there's something that God is inviting us to that's so much deeper. It's more than just trying to correct our behavior. It's really and genuinely correcting our hearts. You see, in John chapter 15, there's this amazing moment that Jesus has with his disciples. And I encourage you, if you have a Bible here with you or your smartphone, use the YouVersion Bible app to follow along on our conversation today. But John chapter 15, John is the fourth gospel in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And John is an amazing book. So if you're looking for something to read, man, read the book of John. It's an amazing place to start in the Bible. But here Jesus is in John chapter 15, and you see this is kind of towards one of the last moments of his life before he's arrested and crucified. You see, in John chapter 13, Jesus has this really powerful, special moment where he washes his disciples' feet. Maybe you've heard of that story. It's an amazing story. I encourage you to read it. In John chapter 13, and then in John 13 on to 14, Jesus continues to talk, and he shares with his disciples that he's going to leave them. He's going to go to a place that they can't follow him right now, but one day they'll join him. He's going to go to, maybe you've heard the words, he's going to go to a place, prepare many rooms for them. That's in John 14, and he has that conversation with his disciples, and he even tells Peter, like you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. Maybe you've heard that. That happens right there in John 13 and 14. And then while they're all still in the upper room together, Jesus begins talking to them about who the Holy Spirit is. And maybe if you're in a place of wanting to learn more about the Spirit of God and how he interacts with us, read John chapter 14. But at the start of John 15, Jesus begins to say some pretty strange words. I mean, it's almost a terrible transition of conversation, right? Have you ever been talking to somebody and they're talking about one thing, right, and you're having a great time, and then they're just like, whoa, way over here, right, talk about something completely different. Jesus has that kind of moment right here at the end of 14 and right at the start of John 15. Let's read it together. This is Jesus talking. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, also I remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I'm the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus in this moment begins to talk about how he is the branch, he's the vine, and we are the branches, and if we remain in him, we produce fruit. This idea of producing fruit is living a pure and fulfilling life, living our purpose right, living every single moment, every single day exactly how God wants us to the fullest that we possibly can. That's what this fruit he's talking about. And you see what happens in this moment when he's talking with his disciples is that he realizes that in the back of their minds, they've elevated the law, they've elevated the 10 Commandments, they've elevated this right way of living to the highest seat of their hearts. And what's happened is they've been trying to be good enough. And their whole life they've been told, this is how you got to live. If you want God to love you, this is what you got to do. If you fall beneath this, then you're not good enough. And so they had tried so hard for so long, their whole lives, trying to meet this standard. And in this moment in John 15, he says, listen, scoop that all to the side. I want you to remain in me. Instead of chasing after trying to be a good person, how about instead you choose to chase after me? How about instead of trying to fix yourself and trying to do all these things and trying to run after, trying to be a good and moral person who makes good decisions, all these things. Listen, that's not bad. But when we make that the source of our identity instead of Christ, then we fall into that religion of trying to be good enough. When Jesus says, what if? What if you were to remain in me? What if you were to abide in me? What if you were to anchor yourself to me? For so long, we've been trying to be good enough. For so long, we've been trying to live by these rules and expectations, which is why so often within the church, when people feel like they've achieved all these things, they can then look down on others and judge them. We've grown into this attitude that the further we get with God, we become less dependent on Him. Kind of like how an infant, when they're born, is completely dependent on their parents. It's crazy. Mason, our son, is just over a year and a half, and it's wild. It's wild to see how he's so different than the day he was born. I mean, he's grown up so much, right? We brought him home from the hospital, and he couldn't do anything. We had to hold him the whole time. It was amazing. It was magical. And then now he's running around the house. We're pulling our hair out. We're like, oh, Mason, right? Child locks are and everything, right? He's crazy. That's part of him growing into being an independent person, becoming himself. And in a similar way, we've developed this attitude that okay, I'm going to grow my walk with God. I'm going to get older. I'm going to be a Christian. We kind of create this timeline within our life where, oh, I've been a Christian now for 5 years or 10 years or 30 years or whatever, and so I've achieved all these things. I'm now a really great person, and I'm living at the fullest of my capacity. This is exactly what God wants me to be doing. So then we start to depend on God less. I just say, God, I don't really need you anymore. I don't need you as much as I used to. But Jesus says, no. We always need God. So really in our journey with Jesus, we should be growing in our dependence, not our independence. We should be growing. We need Him. I love this beautiful illustration that he uses, this beautiful metaphor of this vine and a branch and some fruit. I mean, I have a picture right here of an apple tree, and I love this picture because it takes me back home. Right, it takes me back home to Michigan. It takes me back home to so much of what I grew up in. It takes me back to just the apple orchards of my home. And so if we could throw that picture up for a moment, that'd be incredible, just to see just a great visual of what Jesus is talking about. So they probably didn't have apples in this part of the world where they lived. But I love how Jesus says, I am the vine in this situation. I'm the trunk of the tree, and you are the branch. And if you remain in me, you'll produce fruit. You know, it's always the fruit or the flower of a plant that gets all the admiration. It's always what's on the very end of the branch that people love, right? I mean, we pick the apple, right? We don't cut down the tree. We take the apple. I remember at our wedding, right? I remember at Aaron and I's a wedding when we were planning all the decorations, right? How we created the centerpieces, right? We put all these flowers, and it's beautiful. We put lemon slices, and it was gorgeous what Aaron had made. I'll be honest, as a guy, right, I would just throw a tablecloth out, maybe a tablecloth, and be done at that, right? I'm so glad that she worked so hard to decorate so much of our centerpieces at our wedding. But you don't go to a wedding and you don't see a trunk sitting there. Right, that'd be weird. You go to somebody's house and the centerpiece of their dining room table is a trunk of a tree. Like, oh, okay. A little odd. It's always flowers and a vase. It's always fruits or whatever it could be. And the reality is that we've been chasing after this fruit of trying to be good enough, so we kind of pull our bootstraps up by ourselves and say, I got this, right? We say, I can do this. I want this fruit. I want this full life. If I just do all these things, if I just make sure I read my Bible all the time, if I memorize it, right? If I pray all the right prayers, if I go to church every single Sunday, right? I'll have made it, right? I will have reached the bar. If I stop sinning, if I stop doing all these bad things that God clearly tells me not to do, then I will have achieved what God wants me to. I will be bearing fruit. But Jesus says, listen, don't be chasing after that. What if instead you were to remain in me and allow me to produce this fruit through you? What if you chose to remain in me? So often get caught up in chasing after this happiness in life, trying to have it, this great sense of meaning of why we're here. We're trying to find this fruit, and Jesus says, what if you were to remain in me instead? What if you were to depend on me and trust in me? What if you were to devote your entire self to me? What if you wanted me more than the fruit? You see, I remember when I was in middle school and even into my high school time, it was a season of my life where I was so angry. I didn't really grow up in church, and it may be a little bit different story than you. I didn't grow up in church much at all. Maybe went for Easter, Christmas with my grandparents, but never really grew up in church. And I always thought it was weird that people did. I always thought it was weird that people believed in God. And so when my family was torn apart in my middle school years, and so much hatred and bitterness had invaded and consumed my family, this rage filled my very being, and I hated life. And I sought out to so many different things to find happiness and to find joy. Things like drinking and unhealthy relationships in those early stages of my life. Trying to find joy, the fullness. And even when I was halfway through high school, my mom forcibly dropped me off at a church for youth group. She lied to me, told me we were going out for ice cream. I was stoked. Turns out we're going out to youth group. Mom, I don't want to go to this. And she's like, I'm gonna wrestle you into the building if you don't go in. My mom is very strong, right? And so she means that. I have a strong mom. I remember I went in and I met these people who seemed so happy. And so I remember I fell into this trap of fixing my bad decisions. I started to say I believed in God. I started to read my Bible, do all these things, made sure I was there, and I really felt like I was right with God. I stopped sinning. I stopped trying to do all these terrible things, these habits that I had picked up in the years before. And I still didn't feel like I had it, right? Something was missing. I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend of mine. His name was Jonathan, childhood best friend, and we were both in our junior year of high school when he unexpectedly was diagnosed with cancer. And we hadn't connected in over a couple of years. And so I remember I drove over to his house, and I remember I was crying. Like, God, why would you do this? Why would you let him die? I remember I drove over to his house, and I hadn't seen him in years. And when we were kids, we were the same age, but when I walked through the door, he had grown 2 more feet. And so I'm looking up to this tree of a person, oh my goodness. I remember we're sitting there in his living room, we're just talking, shooting the breeze, and we're talking about life. And then out of the blue, he asked me, Andre, yeah, I'll go to church. I was like, yeah, I've been going to this church lately and whatnot. And he's like, and this excitement just took over his being as his face lit up, as his body was being destroyed by cancer and by radiation. His body was broken, but this smile came on his face and this joy filled his heart. I'm like, what is going on in this moment? And he began to talk about how God had helped him through all of it. And how even though, he looked me right in the eye and he said, even if I die, I will never stop loving God. Even if I get to the very moment when I take my last breath, I will never stop loving Jesus. I remember when I drove home from that time of hanging out with him, that I thought to myself, man, I don't like God like that. To be transparent, if I was in his shoes, I would have left God in the background. I would say, God, if you were to let this happen to me, I don't want anything to do with you. Fortunately, a couple months had gone by, and Jonathan had died. I remember thousands of people had filled this enormous auditorium for his funeral. And there I was, just a couple seats from the front, and his younger brother, who maybe would have been 12 or 13 at the time, he stood up and he spoke only for a few seconds. After he had held back the tears, he just said, I did not want my brother to die. And I know Jonathan, he didn't want to die. None of us wanted him to. But my brother never stopped saying that he will always love Jesus. that no matter what happens, he will never stop loving God. And this 12-year-old boy in front of thousands of people said, and now I'm never going to stop loving Jesus. He will always be the first of my heart, just like he was for my brother. So I can see him once again in heaven. My heart was struck in that moment because I realized that I don't love God like these guys do. I thought I did, but I'd really been just chasing after the fruit. I've really been chasing after trying to have a blessed life, right? We love posting on social media, the hashtag blessed life, like, oh, isn't this awesome? How good life is for me. We want that. But friends, God is inviting us into a relationship where we want him more than anything, so that the fruit that is born in our lives is more beautiful and luscious than what we can even imagine. That the purpose that we've been chasing after in life, that feeling of wholeness, can really be brought into the deepest part of our souls. That the more that we've been looking for can be met. That hunger and thirst within us can be satisfied. Not because we're trying to be good people and chasing after the fruit, but so we can love him more and remain in him. And by remaining and being anchored to him, that he can bring about this transformation within us. He doesn't want us to try to focus on correcting our behavior. He wants us to correct our hearts. So where do you feel like you are this morning, in this moment? Have you been chasing after this religion of trying to be good enough, trying to meet all these expectations and these rules and restrictions? Or can you take Jesus up on his offer to remain in him instead and allow his words and his truth to be the identity of your soul, be the identity of who you are, those insecurities that you see when you look in the mirror? Imagine if they were faded into the background, if they dissolved and never came back. What if that anxiety that was there when you went to bed and it was always there when you woke up? Imagine what if that anxiety was gone. He says, remain in me, so you will bear fruit. Real, true, genuine fruit that is fulfillment and full of meaning and purpose and peace and joy. Not that like what we experienced on Christmas morning, but joy that is real. Changes us. What if we were to set aside our arrogance and our urge to be manly enough and just take it? And just say, Jesus, I need you. What if? What if we were to say, Jesus, I need you? And then see what happens when we go all in with him. Friends, it's been a while since we've had a moment like this, and maybe you came in wondering what on earth these pillows are for. We're taking a nap today. You see, right now I really believe that maybe some of us have been experiencing this dryness of our soul, and we've been longing for something real. We're exhausted and tired from trying to be good enough. And maybe it's time for us to remain in Christ, abide and anchor ourselves to him, and allow him to speak into all of who we are. Listen, I don't know where you are with God, but as this amazing team here in a moment is going to lead us in another song, I encourage you, maybe if you're in a place of needing an extra dosage, another ounce, God's presence, forth of his love. Maybe you can find it here. I know for me, I will be up here. I know there's this fear inside of us. We're worrying about what other people think of us. But I encourage you, push that to the side. Take advantage of this moment. Maybe there's something that's been sitting inside of you for so long. I need you to say, Jesus, now that I'm anchoring myself to you, I can let go. I can let go of this anger. I can let go of this bitterness. I can now forgive. I can now move on. Maybe in this moment, I have no doubt at all that you will encounter a great presence, a great meeting point right now with God as we sing this song in your seat. But what if you had even more here at the front? You're willing to take that risk? Because I am. So in a moment after we pray, the team will lead us in another song. I encourage you to reach out and grab a hold of this moment and say, Jesus, I'm done trying to do this on my own. I'm doing it with you. Will you pray with me?